I have not really cared for Zakai Zeigler as a basketball player since his time at Tennessee, but I'm beginning to change my mind just a little bit. What did you think of his play in Tennessee over the weekend?
I thought Zakai was exactly what you need him to be, which was got a lot of his buckets in transition, had 4 steals in the game. And again, there's 3 ways you need to be able to score, Dave, in transition, or 4 ways. In transition, on the ISO to the basket, underneath with a big or a 3-point shot, and the mid-range needs to die. And Zakai was on transition and shooting threes, well, both times. He went 4 of 8 from 3, had 8 assists, 4 steals. I thought it was incredible in the way he played. I think what helped Zakai, and I think this is a big thing, is something we talked about. I think the emergence of Adu, and by the way, Adu had a bad game. He had 4 points and 4 turnovers and was only 2 of 4. However, because of what Adu had been doing the past 3 games, I think you saw NC State have to respect the inside a lot more, and that opened things up for Zakai, which is why he was able to go 4 of 8 from 3, and that's how he got 20 points. It also opened things up for Josiah-Jordan James, who went 5 of 7 for 3. So the fact is, if you got Zakai Zeigler, Josiah James, Santiago Vescovi, Jordan Gainey, Jemai Mashak with 1 or 2 or 3 with 11 points, 1 or 2 of them is bound to be hitting on any given night from 3, as long as Jonas Adu and Tobia Walker are drawing people away from the basket, which Adu is doing. This night, it was Zakai. Add in what he does in transition and his defense, and you have to love the way he played. I still thought he took too many low percentage shots. I mean, he was 7 of 17 from the field, so there were some issues there, and so there were some. Zakai's not fully back yet. I think he still takes too many risky shots. But I think the story of the night was somebody was bound to hit with so many open looks, and on this night it was Zakai and James.
So have I been too hard on Zakai? Will you at least give me this, the Wild being 5 steps behind the 3-point line shots where his legs are shooting out, which means bad form and all that stuff? Will you at least give me that? There's been a lot of bad shot selection choices.
Yeah, and there still is. But I also think you were expecting too much from Zakai. I think in Tennessee's inside-out game, I don't think Zakai has to be the anchor of the offense. I mean, again, Saturday's an anomaly. That's not going to happen every game, okay, with Zakai. You're not going to see that regularly. So don't expect to see it regularly. What you should expect to see is somebody like Zakai, and it was Josiah-Jordan James also on Saturday, to be the headliner on any given night. Tennessee's got about 5 guys that can be the headliner on any given night in the backcourt right now. And that's the story. And because everybody talked about, people came for me when I said defense doesn't win championships in March, and people came for me because of the Virginia team. That Virginia team in 2019 was great defensively, but remember, Dave, every night there was a different score that stole the headlines for going off, scoring, and shooting the ball?
Yeah. Here's the way I'm going to judge Zakai Zeigler going forward. I'm going to put it at 2.5. If he takes 3 or more crazy long shots where his legs are flipping out and he looks like he's off balance, then I'm going to say bad game. I don't care if he scores 35 points and has 15 assists and 12 rebounds. I'm going to say stop doing that, because not just now, but the evolution based off history of Rick Barnes's offense will be what? It's going to slow down a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more stilted, and possessions matter. So if he's shooting 3 crazy shots, that could be 6 points. And that may be the difference in a tournament game. And let's face it, we're all talking about tournament basketball and how they can be futuristic. So I just in the future, but I just don't see I don't see him ever being a huge impact player. I think he's a good player. I think that maybe I did have my expectations too high. And I can tell you that, pardon me as I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, I can tell you that I think he's kind of popular because he's short and he's got ZZ as his initials. I mean, I really believe that.
Don't sleep on him.
Yeah, don't sleep on him. I mean,
ZZ.
isn't that part of his popularity? Is people like short little players, and especially when they excel. I'm the
Well, he's
opposite.
overcoming.
I'll take it's the guy Ziegler's 6'6". He's a different player.
Well, it's not just being short. He's overcoming so much because he's overcoming being short, and he's got a personal background that's just that we don't need to get into it now, but all of his possessions got burned down in a fire. And the saddest part was he came out, he said, I didn't really lose much because I didn't have many possessions to begin with. Like Zakai Zeigler came from a really rough background. I know New York City is very gentrified now, but Dave, you know this. There are parts of Brooklyn that are still a little rough. Even now, with the parts bordering the East River, they're all nice, but there's still parts of Brooklyn that are not as well off. Same with Queens. And I believe Zakai is from Brooklyn. And look, he comes from so he's overcome more than just being short, put it that way. And he's overcome his injury. So I think people want to root for him. I think too much is being expected of Zakai at this moment. It's about who can make the run in March. And you're right, things are going to slow down a little bit. And it's funny you say what you said. I would even go further. If he takes the ridiculous shots and it hits him, I still wouldn't credit it because Dave, Shannon Sharp said something last week, and I think it applies to football more than basketball, but it's something you applied to Joe Milton a lot, which is you should never accept anything in a win that you wouldn't accept in a loss, right? Is that your philosophy?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in life, like you have kids. If one of your kids does something that could have gotten them seriously hurt, whether or not they got hurt is irrelevant. They still shouldn't have done the thing that could have gotten them hurt, right?
No, that's true. I just think everybody got on board Zakai Zeigler at a time when Tennessee football was down. You wanted something to cheer for. The basketball team was pretty good, but it's just I don't know. Would it affect Tennessee in the tournament if Zakai Zeigler suddenly wasn't a part of the team? No, I think Tennessee would have the same amount of success in the postseason with or without him.
Well, and Santi Vescovi will be healthy by then too. Which, guys, Santi Vescovi is still not healthy and is dealing with and is still getting his legs back from a personal issue. Overall, the game on Saturday, again, it really speaks to Tennessee's depth. By the way, Toby Awaka, 12 boards off the bench. Tennessee out rebounded NC State 40-31. NC State, funny enough, has a former Rick Barnes commit, DJ Burns, who was there. So I think this was a good win. I don't think we know how good NC State is. They came in with like a strength of schedule like number 300 or something like that. So when you're college sports, college basketball more so than college football, you're not what your record says in college basketball. I'll just say that. And that phrase, you are what your record says you are, that does not apply to college sports in general. It definitely doesn't apply to college basketball. And so, yeah, I think that, but, winning this game in Texas was a bit of a weird scenario, but I think it was still, I got to give Zakai some credit for it, but I think he still took a couple of risky shots.
Okay. So your thoughts on this team as when is their next game again? Because we're headed into the Christmas break.
They have one weird one this Thursday, I believe. It's against Tarleton State. Never heard of them in my life.
Okay, so basically they've got a shoot around.
Yes, Tarleton State Texans.
So they're going to beat Tarleton State, and then they won't play again until they play Norfolk State on the 2nd. Then they get into SEC play. So this basketball team, how do you feel about them? Or I'm going to go incomplete. I mean, there's been so many injuries. And then Zakai's grandmother passed away, so he had to go back to Europe. And there's been so much movement. And we talked to Ron Slay, who we'll do on Thursday. And pardon me, and I'm fighting a cold, by the way. I see what y'all are posting on the message board. That's not true. But I haven't seen anything that makes me think they'll win a national championship or even make the tournament. I mean, it's a big incomplete. I just don't know what this team is right now.
I've seen enough to think that because of Jonas Adu to believe they can win the national championship now. And the reason I say that is, I said it. And by the way, how has anybody been harder on Tennessee basketball than me, Dave?
No, I'm actually very stunned you said that.
I said that because what did I say? 3-point shooting is what wins in March. Steph Curry's all over the court is what wins in March. If you don't have Steph Curry, Tennessee has a bunch of players who can shoot but aren't automatic, which there's a difference, right? There are automatic, there's good, and then there's a waste of space. And Tennessee has good from outside. When you're good from outside, though, a lot of it's dependent on how the defense is playing, and that depended on it. You talk about the wide receiver in football who dictates coverage. In basketball, you need a big man who dictates coverage and dictates your defense. And Jonas Adu, by being the inside machine he was the 2 games before Saturday, has totally reset the clock and how teams can play Tennessee. They can't play them anymore how Calipari played them last year. Remember, Tennessee got to number 2, played an unranked Kentucky team at home, and Calipari said, we're going to specifically guard the perimeter and leave under the basket wide open because Uros Plavsic can't beat us. That's basically what he said. And guess what? Uros Plavsic couldn't beat him. And so
Tony takes a shot at us on the message board. I see you don't know basketball either. ZZ is a really good player. ZZ, Tony, we're not that far apart. I think Zeigler's a good player. I don't think he's a really good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. But that's all you kind of really need. You're great. You're the players you rely on. The anchors of your team are Josiah James, Santiago Vescovi, Dalton Connect, and Jonas Adu. Zakai is kind of like an added bonus.
So that means that he's at best the 5th most important player, and we could probably argue a couple guys off the bench, right?
Yeah, with Jordan Gainey and Jemai Meshack and the defense Meshack provides. Yeah, but again, Tennessee is a team that probably needs to go 8 deep with 8 really good players. I mean, we're talking, you talk NBA, those bad boy Pistons teams. If you were the 8th player on that team, you were still good, right? Because those bad boy Pistons teams went 8 to 10 deep, didn't they? When they beat the Bulls twice. And I think that's this Tennessee team. There's not much of a gap between 1 and 8 or 9. The key was just whether or not Jonas Adu and Toby Awaka could command a presence under the basket. Adu can stretch the court now, so he's even more of a threat because you can actually open up with a dribble drive. By the way, that's going to help Zakai the most. Adu, again, unlike Uros, do I pile on Uros Plavsic too much? Do I think he held Tennessee back too much? Am I too mean, Dave?
No, I got sad watching him play last year.
Yeah, it was a little embarrassing.
It was like if you threw me out there, I was very unsure of what to do with the ball.
Yeah, and it was a problem with John Fulkerson too, who I thought I respected him, but they couldn't pull players away from the basket. You need to be 2 things as a big man. You need to be an elite force down low, and you need to draw them out. Adu can draw them out now. That's really going to help Zakai in the future because now Zakai can do what he does best. Because Dave, I will ask you this: 1-on-1 ISO, would you take anybody over Zakai in the SEC, even from Kentucky?
Oh wow! Like 2 dudes just. You don't mean 2 dudes just playing 1-on-1. You mean if they ISO'd it and other.
If they cleared the court and ISO'd it, and somebody's on Zakai, and he's about to drive for the basket, how much money are you putting on him to make the shot every time?
Oh man, to score.
Yeah. Or go to the line.
I feel like I'm missing somebody, but I don't know that there's a guy that I would say locked down. He's going to win a first game to 11. Keep it if you make it, keep it. I don't know that. I don't know. Is there a guy out there for you? I mean, I guess. I mean, that's not the game.
But it is when you can, if you have 3-point shooters and your big can clear the basket, which Jonas Adu can do, it does become part of the game. Now, 1-on-1, the issue with Zakai would be defense. But again, Zakai's not a great 1-on-1 defender, but that's okay because Tennessee's interior defense is so good. All you have to do really is guard the passing lanes. Again, this is why I call AI overrated. The thing that helped AI the most, Dave, tell me if I'm right on this. You watched him more than I did. The year they got to the finals, AI was able to play the passing lanes really easily because Dikembe Mutombo was underneath the basket. Wasn't he? So it's a lot easier to gamble on the passing lanes when Dikembe Mutombo was down there and he's going to help you out every time. And he had no business winning that MVP. That should have been Shaq who won the